Week 8 of the fantasy baseball season, and here's a few prospects I would watch and stash on my roster this week. The first prospect, AJ Smith-Schuster of the Atlanta Braves. So Smith-Schuster coming up from the minor leagues after last season. We saw him in the major leagues for a little bit with the Atlanta Braves, where he really got through the Braves system pretty quick last season, where he was unable to begin the year, made it to the major leagues. Only 21 years old is Smith-Schuster. So Schuster so far this season, not a great year for him in the minor leagues. But Bryce Elder, he got bombed in the few outings we saw him of late in the majors. And the Braves, they need a fifth starter at the back end of the rotation. So Smith-Schuster on the season, 1-2 record, 6.10 ERA, 8 games started, 31 innings, 35 strikeouts, and a 1.52 whip. So like I said, Smith-Schuster quickly came through this Atlanta Braves system over the last couple seasons, and he's got a good fastball. He's a young pitcher. Maybe he just needed to get to the majors to get him going after he had a bad minor league season, because last season in the major leagues, and he wasn't too bad. He was a middle of the pack type of pitcher in the few starts. He had 25 in the third, 1-0 record, 20 Ks, 4.26 ERA, 1.11 whip. So this Brave team, the top four for the most part, are solid, even with Spencer Strider out for the season. Obviously, Ronaldo Lopez, he's been surprising this year. Charlie Morton still doing good things. Max Fried, Chris Sale, just coming off of 2 big games for those guys as well. And now you add Smith-Schuster if he could get things going. So he's going to have good offensive support, obviously, over there with the Atlanta Braves. He's available right now, 90% of fantasy league. So with him coming up today and pitching for this Brave team in a pretty decent matchup versus a Cub team that's middle of the pack hitting the baseball this season, I think Smith fantasy owners, I would go pick him up on the wire right now. The next pitcher is sticking with the Chicago Cubs, Cade Horton of the Cubs. So Cade Horton, he just got called up to AAA a few weeks ago, and he's one of the top pitching prospects in all Major League Baseball, and he's out there right now. 94% of fantasy leagues is Horton, number 18 prospect in all the majors. So Cade Horton, I mentioned him a few weeks ago when he called up to AAA, and now one more level away, obviously, from making the major leagues. And now with the Cubs pulling Kyle Hendricks from the rotation, the chances of Cade Horton coming up and making an impact this season, obviously, are getting better now. I know AAA, he's off to a slow start in the early going down there, but on the season so far, down 2-1 record, 4.05 ERA, 8 games started, 33 in the third, 38 Ks, and a 1.20 whip. So he was a top pick in the 2022 draft, 7th overall in that draft. And this kid's got good stuff. He dominated AA, and now he's on to AAA with good K rate, throws a hard fastball. And this is what you want to look for, top pitchers coming up through the minor leagues and guys that help your roster at the latter part of the year or in the middle of the season to get you to where you need to be. So right now, like I said, with the Cubs having been spotted in the rotation, with Kyle Hendricks pulled, even definitely right now, Cade Horton, someone to keep an eye on. And like I said, number 18 prospect in all major leagues, and he's out there in 94% of fantasy leagues. Next prospects, Carson Williams of the Tampa Bay Rays. So I've mentioned, obviously, Junior Caminero over the last few weeks, and he's just not coming up yet as Caminero, where they're trying him all over the infield to see what position he could field the baseball good at, because Caminero, obviously, he's a big bat, number 3 prospect in all the major leagues, but Carson Williams, number 16 prospect in all the major leagues, and he's available right now 98% of fantasy leagues. So he's been on a tear over the last week in AAA for this Tampa Bay Rays team, and I know the Rays, they got some guys back from injury of late, especially Brandon Lowe, but like I said, Carson Williams, he's down there and doing everything possible to try to get on this major league club, and another former first-round pick as well in 2021. 8 home runs, 22 RBIs, 11 stolen bases, a 241 average, and a 420 on base. I know he's only 20 years old, but this Ray team, we know every year they bring up a couple of these prospects, and these guys pan out, and they're cornerstones for this team for many seasons until obviously their arbitration years are up. And then they trade them because they can't afford them to big contracts. But like I said, Carson Williams and Junior Caminero could help this Ray team right now. But I'm focusing on Williams, where he's going to bring batting average, he's going to bring on base, and he's going to steal bases. 61 career of stolen bases in the minor league. So he's got a decent track record with that. Home runs, he's hitting a little bit over his head this year. 50 home runs only in his minor league career in 1,064 at-bats. So right now, Carson Williams, he could be up possibly, or this Ray team, they're just not going to call the kids up. But right now, someone to definitely keep an eye on this week and for the next few weeks. Because like I said, the last week or two, he's been tearing it up. And he might force this Tampa Bay Ray team to call him up and give him a starting spot or at least some playing time. The next prospect, Jacob Murarowski of the Milwaukee Brewers. So this Brewer team, they got tons of injuries in the rotation. Wade Miley out for the season. DL Hall, he's been on the IL for a little bit now. And now Joe Rush is going on the injured list with a lower back strain. So they've had pitchers drop like flies. And Tobias Myers, he's going to get a chance once again in this rotation. But Murarowski's down there in AAA. They might want to wait to put him in AAA. Big kid, 6'7", 190, 22 years old, second-round pick in 2022. And he's dominating right now, AA. I know 0-0 record, 2.32 ERA. Started 8 games, 31 innings, 44 strikeouts, a 1.23 whip. So he's got good K rate. He's obviously a tall pitcher in the AA system where we know most of the players that are going to make the majors and have an impact are these guys in AA. AAA for the most part, it's these veterans who've been on rosters throughout their careers but bouncing around now, trying to stay in AAA, where once the young guys go to AAA, they get a few weeks, few months of seasoning, and they get called up, these top prospects. So once you see Jacob Murarowski get called up to AAA, that's when you really should notice that he might be in the major sooner than later. But also, like I said, with all these injuries in this rotation here for this Milwaukee Brewer team, it wouldn't be surprising. And we've seen it in the past with pitchers coming up from AA and going right to the majors. So right now, this week, pitching heavy on this prospect watch and stash list because there's a bunch of guys that could come up and make impact. And I've spoken about Junior Caminero and James Wood over the last couple weeks. That's why they're not on list. But anyway, Murarowski, the number 23 prospect in all the majors, and he's available in 97% of fantasy leagues. And the fifth and final prospect I'd look to watch and stash, Blade Tidwell of the New York Mets. So this New York Mets team, it looks like they're going nowhere this season. We saw him call up Christian Scott a few weeks ago, and he's been pitching good for the most part besides his last outing. And Blade Tidwell, he's making his way through this Mets system pretty quickly as well, where he just got called up to AAA. And now if he could pitch well in AAA over the next few weeks, there's going to be a spot in this rotation, I believe, for him. Because this Met rotation really hasn't shown much. Sean Manaea, I think, has been decent this year. Jose Quintana, mixed bag of results. Kodai Senga, he's still out. Christian Scott, he's going to be in this rotation. But now that fifth spot's been open over the last couple weeks. Jose Butto, he was pitching good for a little bit. He got sent to the minors. Joey Lucchesi, we saw him get a start, fill in. He didn't do much. They sent him back. And the last 2 out of 3 games, the Mets had Tyler McGill and Adrian Hauser. So Tidwell, especially on a Met team where they're struggling and they want to see what they got with the future, I think he's going to be up sooner than later if he could dominate in AAA over the next couple weeks here to a couple months. Because like I said, I believe he's a better option than a Tyler McGill or an Adrian Hauser, where we know what those guys are going to be. 5th starters at best, 3rd time around the lineup. They can't face him because they've been getting hit their whole career doing that. And Tidwell, he has upside, and a guy going through this Met system pretty quick over the last couple years. On the season, 2-4 record, 2.41 ERA, 5 games started, 37 1/3, 44 Ks, and a 1.07 whip. So definitely someone to keep an eye on. And this Met team, if they continue not playing good as well, they're going to ship some of these starters out and try to get younger players as well. So Tidwell, like I said, it wouldn't be surprising if he's in the majors mid-June, July for this Met team, and he's available in 99% of fantasy leagues and the number 10 prospect in the Met system. That's a few prospects I'd look to watch and stash possibly for Week 8 of the fantasy baseball season.